Okay, roll call.
Nelson. Orson.
Here.
Larson.
Here.
Wunschel.
Here.
Hanson.
Here.
Reed.
Here.
Moriarty.
Thank you. Item 3 is the presentation of initial position statement from City of Spencer to Spencer Employees Association, Inc. I'll turn it over to the staff.
All right. Our initial presentation to the Spencer Employees Association is a 1-year contract at 1% or a 3-year contract at 2% for each year, and we are choosing not to discuss the overtime provisions.
Thank you, Amanda. Any questions regarding number 3? All right, we will move on to item 4, which is the consent agenda. 4A is a motion to approve City Council minutes of December 7, 2020. B, licenses. Approve Class C permit with Sunday sales for Brew Oil number 31 at 4318 Highway Boulevard. Class C beer permit with Sunday sales for Brew Oil number 32 at 15 Grand Avenue, and Class E liquor license. Class C beer permit and Sunday sales for Brew Oil number 40 at 1001 South Grand Avenue. All are subject to final approval by the Iowa Alcoholic Beverages Division. C is a resolution adopting a final assessment schedule for the City of Spencer 2020 sidewalk construction project and confirming and levying the assessments. And D is a resolution accepting work covering the 2019 Spencer Substandard Housing Rehabilitation Program, project number 1. First by Donovan, second by Lauren. Discussion or question on these items? All right, hearing none, vote by machine, please.
Orson, I. Larson, I. Wunschel, I. Hanson, I. Reed, I.
Thank you. Item 5, old business. There is none this evening. Item 6, new business. 6A is a ordinance amending Title 9, Chapter 11, Section 11D concerning residential exterior wall and roof material. This is the first filing. I have asked Anna, after we have a first and second, to give just a brief overview recap of the discussion that has occurred at the Planning and Zoning Commission, just to update you all.
I'll introduce that.
First by Bill,
Okay.
second by Tracy. Anna, if you want to take the podium there, make sure that there's the microphone's lit up. Okay.
All right. And drop my mask. I'll try not to breathe too deeply. Okay, so the Planning and Zoning Commission met on November 25th to briefly discuss this, and then again on December 1st. The items for discussion were that there's a lot of new materials coming out on the market that are being used in residential markets. The way our ordinance read, it was a very narrow band of what you can use without asking for variance otherwise. So that question was raised by a project that was in progress here in Spencer, and so that question was raised to Planning and Zoning. After much discussion, they decided that there were a number of materials coming out, and it's very hard to identify and project what those materials would be in the coming years. And so the desire was that we don't just let it be a free-for-all, but have it more performance-based. We don't want the cladding materials to be falling off and poorly performing. Mostly we want to keep water, moisture out of our dwellings, out of our buildings. So we want them to perform well and look nice for the long term. That was one of the main points. The other point of discussion was that there are subdivisions throughout Spencer, those that regulate more closely what materials are in those neighborhoods. That's an opportunity for certain neighborhoods to more narrowly restrict that. And then the discussion was, is the purpose of the city to regulate the exact materials or the performance, kind of aesthetic or performance? And so that went back and forth, and there was a desire to do some aesthetic regulation. But when it got more deeply into that, it was a matter of, well, what are we adverse to. And the primary things were, as you see, agricultural and industrial. So we don't want our houses to be confused with factories and so forth. We do want them to look residential. So that's kind of the brief. It is, in order to achieve the performance base, we need kind of to have a basis for that. So you see the introduction of the International Residential Code. That is a model code that the state of Iowa has adopted. Jurisdictions that are greater than 15,000 people are required to adopt that. We are not there. So this is more guidance for us that is being proposed to you all. So, questions?
My question is, who's going to inspect this and who's going to manage this on knowing how, whether the material's put on right or not, when we don't have a building code per se, and it's so vague. I mean, I look like Don wrote it because it was so vague. Who's to decide what's industrial and what's farm material? I mean, it just, I mean, it just left it up to anybody's interpretation is what I looked at. I mean, I know what they're wanting, not metal buildings, but now a lot of these, I mean, in a lot of these cities, they have metal. I mean, even in the big cities, they're allowing it because it is a, you know, a design with contemporary or modern styles and stuff. So I don't know if it's gonna, I like that they're not being totally restrictive. I understand that, but this is, I mean, who's, I mean, if you say no, you can't use that, or then they would go to the Board of Adjustment to go, you know. So I just saw that and I just kind of wondered what the guidance from from the planning department's going to be on that.
So when somebody submits a building permit application, then it's the planning department's role to interpret what's in the code. If there's any gray area, then it's through interpretation from the staff.
Right.
If there's disagreement from the applicant, then they would appeal administratively to the Board of Adjustment, yes.
Okay.
As far as inspections, no. We don't do beyond zoning inspections, and then we do the plumbing and electrical. So we don't go in and make sure things are structurally sound. We don't go back and inspect energy code to make sure that they have enough insulation and so forth. That doesn't negate that it's required.
Right.
And so this is along those same lines.
Okay.
So this would fall into, we are saying that it needs to be adequately anchored. There's guidance for that. If there's questions surrounding that, a lot of our contractors already know all those things. They wouldn't need that extra guidance, but certainly we could provide it to them. It's an educational component of this. But you're right, it would be directed through the planning department initially and then brought to administrative appeal if there was disagreements. So there would be that opening for that. To your point on the metal and contemporary sort of looks, this does provide that opening. So, but it's within the realm of how is that material used. So everyone has a different opinion on that. I guess the discussion at the Planning and Zoning Commission was that there were different opinions. Some favored a more contemporary look. So there was discussion back and forth that way, and this provides that opening. I will say that the question was brought up because an applicant did want to use metal on a residential dwelling.
Question, if there's a planned urban development that, can those restrictions be more, can those codes or qualifications be more restrictive than what the city code has it without a problem? So if a developer has 20 homes, he can decide or make the decision of what he or she wants inside that development, which might be more restrictive than what our codes are.
I might defer to Don on that, but it's a matter of subdivision is my understanding. Don, do you want to elaborate?
Yes,
You understand my question?
sure, any developer can have more restrictive covenants
Okay.
that are
Covenant, that's
enforced by
word
the
I'm
owners
looking
in the
for, so,
subdivision.
Okay, all right, very good, thank you.
Any other questions regarding this item? This is the first of 3 filings, just as a reminder. All right, hearing none, we'll call the vote.
Thank you.
Vote by machine, please.
Orson, I. Larson, I. Wunschel, I. Hanson, I. Reed, I.
Thank you. Item 6B is a resolution accepting work on 2019 West 4th Street Sewer Replacement Project.
I'll make that motion.
First by Donovan,
I'll second.
second by Bill. Questions, discussion on this item? Hearing none, vote by machine, please.
Orson, I. Larson, I. Wunschel, I. Hanson, I. Reed, I.
Thank you. Item 6C is a resolution accepting work on the 2020 City Hall roof project. First by Lauren, second by Ron. Discussion on this?
I see this as a 20-year warranty on the roofing and stuff. How do we keep track of that on warranties and stuff? Do we have or place where we keep all those records on our warranty work, or do we, each individual department have it on that?
That's a really good question. We do have a central file for those types of things, but I think individual departments also keep their own project files.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that if something comes up, we know what kind of warranty we have on it. So, if it comes 10 years down the road, the council at that point will understand and be able to pull that out and have that document if some of us aren't here yet.
Thank you, Ron. Any other discussion points? Hearing none, vote by machine, please.
Orson, I. Larson, I. Wunschel, I. Hanson, I. Reed, I.
Thank you. Item 6D is a resolution adopting final assessment schedule for 2020 West 4th Street Underground Project and confirming and levying the assessments.
I'll introduce that.
First by Bill, second by Lauren. Questions, discussions on this item? Hearing none, vote by machine, please.
Orson, I. Larson, I. Wunschel, I. Hanson, I. Reed, I.
Thank you. Item 7, engineers report. Ross?
Good evening, everyone. I don't necessarily have anything to report on unless anybody has any questions. That's right. Perfect. All right. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Taking the rest of the winter off?
Thank you, Ross. Item 8, city managers report.
Thanks, Mayor. Just a few items. I wanted to update everyone on City Hall hours, city facility hours this week and next week. City facilities will close at noon on December 24th and December 31st, and city facilities will be closed on Christmas Day and New Year's Day. Just to give you a heads up that coming in January will be sort of a final slew of recommendations from Carlson Detman. They're finishing up their review of our personnel manual. They've provided some initial human resources recommendations, and we will finish up our work on the employee evaluation portion at the end of January. And then lastly, this is our last meeting of the year, so Merry Christmas to all of you and Happy New Year. And while it has been not the year that any of us planned, I do think we've been rather successful in the things we've been able to do, and our biggest success is we've been able to keep our staff as healthy as we can, and we've continued to maintain operations during this really challenging and very different year. So hopefully 2021 is on the upward swing.
Thank you, Amanda. Any questions for Amanda? All right. Item 9, mayor's report. Have a couple items. We have 2 actual openings on the library board. We'll take a motion to appoint Steve Bungars to the library board. He's expressed an interest in that. To replace Donna Goebel. This is a midterm vacancy, and this term expires June 30th of 2024. First by Lauren,
I'll second.
second by Bill. Any discussion?
Gonna be a close vote.
All those,
On opposite sides, but I think I'll probably be able to help him out.
He was always to the left of me and I was to the right of him, so we got along well.
all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. And to the general public, we do have another opening on the library board, so if you do have an interest, please contact City Hall or Mandy at the library, and we can move things forward that way. Item 2, I'd like to have a short discussion, well, short, doesn't matter how long the discussion is. I've had a couple citizens reach out about our, I might be saying the name of this wrong, but the service line warranty program that we have. I believe we've been in that for almost 3 years, maybe 3.5. It's with a third party, not affiliated with the city of Spencer, but there is a marketing agreement in which they can use our city logo and letterhead. And it's confusing to some of the citizens. My main concern at this point in time is this particular citizen that reached out to me has requested several times, I believe 4 or more, to be removed from the mailing list, and they refuse to do that. They keep getting these offers, and so most of the council, so Tracy and Donovan and Lauren would not have been here, nor was I in office when the program was initially discussed and put into place. There's an annual contract with a renewal, I believe in September. Don can clarify that. We can give, if we want, a notice to not renew the program in a 90-day window, which can be now, and then, we can do it again 90 days. But I thought for the benefit of everyone around the table and the city staff, just to have a quick discussion about that program, why it's in place, and then if we have a general interest in keeping that in place or terminating that program. So, Bill?
I had a citizen contact me who had a sewer issue and contacted the company, and it was not a local contractor, and they were going to show up like 72 hours later. Well, these people had sewer that didn't work, and you can't, in a situation where you don't want to wait 3 days to get it fixed. And it was quite obvious that whoever they were talking to had not a clue, one, where Spencer was or who the local contractors were, because the list that they gave this person, he had never even heard of. And one of them, a couple of names, he went on like Google and tried to search the name of the company, and it wasn't even in that particular town. So, and I think since that time, and I know in our situation, we bought the service, and I'm not too sure today whether I wouldn't go back to my homeowner's policy where I can now get a rider to cover basically the same thing that they're providing for a lesser cost. For the three of you who are new on this, and I think Ron can back me up, and Don can as well, is that we got into this. Mayor Peterson went to a national meeting, came back with a strong recommendation from a lot of cities who have this, and a lot of those are probably larger communities than ours who had local plumbers that could come immediately. And not that we're necessarily that remote, but and that's why we got a strong endorsement from the Iowa or the U.S. League. And I'm not too sure today whether or not we as a city want to have them put our name on, even though we don't get a dime out of it. If this is something that is not a good service for our citizens, we ought not to be involved in it. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I understand you, Bill, but I really still think it's a brought it forward, and I know that person, if they had a 3-day wait, they were probably lucky, because I think the plumbers I talked to that were replacing sewers were 5 and 6 weeks out. So if they could get somebody here in 3 days, that was probably top of the line. They might have been out 5-6 weeks if they would have had to get a local plumber. So I think, you don't have to take it, but it brings it to attention, because there were a lot of older people, and anybody that would get a big surprise, and what the biggest problem was, it's $5,000 to $8,000.
Oh, it's
I mean,
expensive,
I mean, it's a huge hit, and we were getting people, and I think we had the realtors come in and say this was a good program to get out, and so there was more than just
Oh, yeah.
Randall doing it.
Okay.
It was well thought out, and maybe this company, but the idea that you don't want to get a piece of mail, I mean, you can't just go in and say, because it's bulk, they're sending it out to everybody.
Oh, yeah.
This idea that you can just say that we're going to, we get up there all the time, well, we don't want our junk mail. Well, you can't decide what the companies send them out as a bulk, because they're not going to send out, if they had to take out each person, they'd have to send it all out first class mail. So it's an economical thing. So, I understand sometimes it's not fun to get that stuff, but, throw it away.
Yeah, well, if there are bad situations, because I think, Brian, you did some research, and there were only like 8 or 9 cases the last time you and I talked about it, less than a dozen situations where the insurance company came in
Right.
and provided the service. Is that correct, Brian? Yeah, I remember asking you, you went back and did some research, but there were not a lot of people who were taking advantage, who
Right.
unfortunately didn't have to use the service.
Right.
And I just have a hard time knowing that they have to go to, you think they could find somebody locally who could do the
They
work.
do have a contractor that's licensed. I know there's one in town that is doing it. I mean,
With this company?
they're certified on this, yeah.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
the citizen who called me said the names that he was getting, of course, this was an online, I'm sure, God only knows where the person answering the phone,
Right,
customer service person was, but there were, the 2 or 3 that they listed, not even close around Spencer.
yeah. I know there's one that's locally that is certified to do it, so,
But with this service organization?
with Service Guard, yep.
Don? Did you want to speak?
Yes, but I've got a green light instead of a red light.
I'll have to ask the microphone czar over here.
Go ahead, John.
There you go.
Oh, I'm on. Well, what I needed to point out is this wasn't on the agenda for discussion or action tonight, merely to bring it up for future. So we probably ought to limit the discussion tonight and hold it at a future time when it's on the agenda.
Sounds good. Thank you, Don. I will just conclude this portion of my report with saying, as the mayor, my main concern when we do talk about it, I want to discuss the following points. Number one, the merit of the service, because you can get it through this company or through other insurance companies. Number two is the marketing of our city logo and our image on the paper and the envelope. When these go out, there is a spike in staff time. There's a lot of calls that come in to here thinking that we're negotiating this thing. And number three is the monetary flow. So the way I understand it, when the program first is typically done in cities, there is a revenue stream back to the city. Spencer decided to take a lower premium to the residents and not receive any funding, and there's also confusion about that. So we'll put it on a committee discussion, probably committee of the whole or Public Works, one of the two, and discuss it further. But I'd just like you to know that that's coming down the pipe. Thank you, Don, for pointing that out. And as I would echo Amanda's comments, as we approach the end of the year, the next time we gather in the council chambers, it will be 2021. 2020 will be behind us. Now, we've only been operating, this way in 2020. While it feels like the whole year, we actually had about 60 to 75 days of quasi-normalcy, And my hope for the citizens in town is that you're able to spend this week reflecting upon why this week occurs every year with the birth of Christ, and taking time to reflect on the year that has been and the year that is upcoming. And as we move into New Year's Eve, wish you all a safe New Year's Eve. Please travel with safety. If you are out celebrating the new year, please make sure you have a designated driver, and we'd like to see you all in 2021. When we do reconvene, we'll be in the midst of the budget process. We'll continue to look at how we're spending your money. We will look at setting our goals for the upcoming year and move forward with the great zeal and zest that you elected us into office to carry forward. So with that, I would entertain any questions.
Just one comment, Mayor. I think
Yep.
1/2 is a Saturday.
What's that?
I think July 2nd, January 2nd is a Saturday. Just asking. You're on the sheet, it says January 2nd, doesn't it? For our next meeting?
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's the 4th.
Mine says the 2nd.
Does it? Okay.
Gotcha. We'll catch that in the next item. Good eye, Ron. Or good eye, Lauren.
Just saying.
That's a good segue, right? Good segue right into item 10.
Got printed before we caught that. Sorry.
Nope.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Council committee reports, upcoming meetings.
So we have our regularly scheduled council meeting, January 4th, 2021 at 6:30 PM. We also need to schedule a Public Works Committee to discuss the service line warranty program, as well as the sewer study that was discussed during the CIP, and the storm sewer at Westfield by IGL. And we also need to schedule a Public Safety Committee meeting to discuss our sidewalk snow removal policy. I'll send out some dates and times to those committees, and we'll get those scheduled for right away in the new year.
Thank you, Amanda. Item 11, I would entertain a motion to approve the bills and claims.
So moved.
First by Lauren, second by Tracy. Any discussion on this? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Item 12, other business opportunity to address the council. Would anyone like the floor? No? Seeing and hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved. First by Donovan, second by Tracy. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Nobody wants to stay, so we'll adjourn.